You may be asking yourself, is this really happening? Yes, this is really happening. We are doing an episode of Nez Nation Live. I am very, very excited to have a special guest on today. I'm very, very excited about this individual. He is somebody that I kind of discovered through social media. I kind of discovered him through, these channels, these different channels, but especially Facebook. And I am your host, Professor Nez. Before I introduce him, let me tell you a little bit about our show. I'm your host, Professor Nez, and this is a show where we talk to interesting, creative people. Yes, Sean's in the house, late night edition. Yes, we talk to interesting, creative people doing groundbreaking work in their respective fields, and they're here to share their story with us. And the emphasis here, folks, is share, okay? So you can interact with our guest. You can interact with me, your host, Professor Nez. And if you haven't already, please hit like right up there so you can always be notified when we go live. Thank you, Sean, for joining us. And without further ado, I just want to let you know who I have on the show today. This is an amazing individual. He's a member of our tribe, Nez Nation, our Facebook group, which, by the way, you should be too if you're not already. I know Sean's a member of our group. Go to facebook.com/groups/NEZNATION. You can join right there. But this individual right here, I am very excited to announce. He's somebody who I noticed, and I don't think he knows this. He's just sitting there going, will he get to me already? He's somebody who I noticed one day. This was a while ago, Ryan. One day I just happened to be noticing somebody playing piano, and it was a Facebook live stream. And I'll never forget, I remember going, wow, that's really cool. And then I pressed, you have to listen, Ryan knows this, and most of you know, you have to click on the actual screen to hear the audio. And it was this beautiful melodic, I almost want to say, this will sound probably really stupid and really kind of silly and sound like I'm stroking his ego, but I'm not. But it really sounded like Chopin. And that's one of my favorite musicians of all time.
Thank you.
And I remember making a comment. Here's another thing that was really impressed me about this individual. First of all, he was playing beautifully. And then I noticed that I made a comment. I said, wow, really nice song, really nice playing. Who is it? And he actually responded. And there was a few viewers on there. He actually said, oh, thank you, Peter. I was using my personal profile account. And he said, thank you, Peter. Actually, this is something that I made up, just kind of on the spot. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And he kept doing this and doing this and doing this more and more. And I became so intrigued, and we developed a relationship. One thing led to another. He became a member of our Nez Nation group. And now I'm so pleased to announce he's with us on Nez Nation Live. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me introduce to you a musician, creator, an inspiring artist. He has created a curriculum for music, which I'm going to let him kind of talk a little bit about. Mr. Ryan David Dwyer. Hey, Ryan, how are you today? So happy to see you.
Real good, real good. Well, thank you for telling me how we first interacted, because I was wondering.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
I do remember that, because I remember.
You remember that, really?
Every interaction on the live, I have a good memory for. However, what I did not know was that was the first time we interacted. So
yeah, I mean, you've done a lot of those too. I mean, it wasn't. I don't think it was one of your first ones.
Well, there's not many musicians
you did a lot
out there doing live broadcasts that are spontaneous, playing from their hearts, that are their own music. Facebook is actually pretty strict about cover songs and so forth, but a lot of musicians do that anyways. They'll play popular songs from the radio, and so, but my main thing and my main focus is not cover music. It's just bringing forth fresh sounds. And the one thing about live broadcasts that I really, really love, and this is something you don't know about me, is that back in the year 2011, I played piano at Portland International Airport for a year and a half. So like
actually working for the airport?
It's a volunteer program, but you have to sit in front of a panel of 5 people to even get considered. And what they're looking for is interaction from the musicians. So what they do is they test you with 5 panel of people, and one of them comes up to you while you're playing during the audition and they start talking to you. And if you can interact with that person while you're playing, that leaves a good impression on them. And so what I did is, after playing for a couple of weeks there, I realized that it might be fun to try to go live from my laptop. And at that time, LiveStream, the LiveStream itself, was pretty much the only platform available for going live. And so I had just downloaded their software to my computer, and I started doing live broadcasts from the grand piano at the airport, and people would come up and start interacting, and I've got some of that recorded on video, actually, if you want to see it someday. But,
yeah, I definitely want to see that one.
Because there was some very, very meaningful interactions that took place because of that, especially because of the high stress of the airport environment, and where a lot of people would just sit down and close their eyes, and they would come up to me and thank me for helping to just make their day feel better. And that's where I really feel I grew as a musician, was the pressure of a lot of people going by, and also the pressure of a live broadcast. And so, yeah.
No, I really was blown away. I mean, obviously, hey, Todd, how are you? A late night broadcast. Yeah, this is a late night special.
Todd?
Todd's in the house. Todd is a fantastic live streamer, and he is just crushing it with his show as well.
Sweet.
Really happy to have Todd on the show, and happy to know Todd. Ryan, I think Todd's a part of our NEZNATION group as well. I can't confirm that, but maybe he can.
So
I wanted to ask you because,
and Todd is on.
Okay, cool, great. All right, see, I got to pay attention to these things.
Well,
Hello,
I guess
Professor
it was
Nez.
Sean when you had you mentioned somebody earlier. So.
Yeah, Sean is too. Yeah, Sean is definitely a part of our. Yeah, Sean, and actually both
I'm not
Sean
looking at
and
Facebook
Todd.
at the moment, so I'm just going on memory.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Well, you have a great, terrific memory, because I completely lost that. But you know what's funny is that I had Todd and Sean both on the show, and it was just
Cool.
a treat to have them on. Really great shows, and that's all in the archives on Professor Nez. But I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts? Because you're a musician. You know, I've had most of the people that I've had on my show have been, digital storytellers, marketers, live streamers, YouTubers, creators, video makers, filmmakers. This is my first, and I'm so happy that you were, nice enough and humble enough to be on my show. Thank you so much. Thank you, Todd. Love you too, brother. You're awesome. And what are your thoughts? I mean, how does what you do, being a musician and being somebody who's played piano for so long, how do you feel that translates to Facebook Live or live streaming in general? And what are your thoughts on live video in general?
Yeah, I've put a lot of contemplation into this from both an entrepreneur standpoint as a musician, and just the interaction with people, and how music is obviously a nonverbal medium. So the dynamic going live with a nonverbal medium is completely different than something that's a specific subject matter. Luckily, as a musician, if my music is above average or even average, then people are going to probably tune in for at least 30 seconds.
No, I love the way you said that, nonverbal medium. I mean, that's really cool. And the fact that you coupled musician with entrepreneur, because I think the era that we're living in, and I'm sure some of the viewers would agree, and I wonder what your thoughts are on this, Ryan, the era that we're living in, if you want to be a creator, if you want to make a living doing what you love to do, your passion to create. When I was a kid, and when David was a kid, David, how you doing? David, does he have a one-handed backhand? Nobody has a one-handed backhand like you, David, that's for sure. Or Federer, for that matter. He's a fellow tennis friend. I love David. Miss you, brother. Miss you on the courts. But I think that in this day and age, and again, I want to hear your thoughts on this, Ryan. And it sounds like you're very astute on the subject. In this day and age, there's an opportunity for you to make money and make a living. Forget making money, but just sustain yourself, make a living doing what you love to do. Whereas when I was a kid, when David was a kid, when Todd was a kid, definitely, there was none of that opportunity. I mean, if I wanted to do this right here, right now, I'd have to hire probably 10 people, an editing crew, a production crew, a lighting crew, a key grip, a producer. Whereas now I can do all this on my own. I mean, this is a dream come true for me. I've always wanted to have my own talk show. I love
Yeah.
conversation. I try to be conversational in my classes. I try to be conversational as a professor, as a teacher, as a writer, as an author. I always try to keep that conversational tone and style. But I love the way that you said that. And talk a little bit about your curriculum and what the name of it is again, Ryan. Tell me a little bit about your curriculum that you created.
Yes. The curriculum is called Key Identity Access because it gives you immediate access to all the keys of the piano. With traditional piano lessons that use notes with the sharps and flat terminology, you have to go through the complication of figuring out which ones are the black keys and which ones are the white. But my system color codes the keys, and I also use a number system as well. But my system color codes the keys so that there's no confusion, and my workbook, it's a physical workbook. It was made for as young as 3 years old. So your kids could use this curriculum to learn. And the reason why it's such a powerful curriculum is because it uses spatial recognition and hand positioning diagrams. So what the kids do is they color in the area where it shows where the fingers should be. So first they color the hand and the exact fingers, then they color the keys in the workbook. And so they have 2 sensory points. They have the touching the fingers in workbook and touching the keys in the workbook, and then they play it on the piano. So essentially what these young kids are being exposed to is using the natural coloring creativity for one, but they're learning all sorts of critical thinking skills, which are very important in the child development process. Hand-eye coordination and motor skills. I've noticed that some 3 or 4-year-olds, their less dominant hand has trouble reaching the keys, which means that it's just something that needs developed through a process that helps them build up those muscles and the hand-eye coordination. Because if you're right-handed and you're always looking at what you're doing with that hand, your eyes are going to associate really quick what to do, but the other hand, not so much. So also, I had consulted with a former school principal who got her PhD in early childhood education foundations. And it was pretty awesome because I met her at a Chamber of Commerce event here in Canby, Oregon, where I live. And they owned an art gallery that focused a lot on creativity and doing classes for kids. And when she saw my curriculum, she says, wow, man, I can totally confirm that what you're doing is actually scientifically proven to be more, or rather better suited towards the natural learning process of kids. And what she was pointing out is that with the way that the brain works, there's 2 spectrums. There's concrete learning and abstract learning. And so abstract learning is basically any type of learning you go through that does not represent what it is you're trying to learn. So as a teacher, you recognize this, and I actually am pretty certain you use a lot of concrete learning examples in your classes, which means that abstract learning.
I mean, I try to. I mean, I really try to. I mean, it's funny because I was going through this, and NEZNATION, you might get a kick out of this, just to give you a little slice of what's been happening lately behind the scenes. I did a video about this on my YouTube channel too, that I experienced a real kind of blow where, sometimes you think that you're just dropping fire and you're just providing so much value. And it's like, why can't these people, sometimes you just say in your head, like, I'm not getting the reaction. So what happened is that I gave a presentation, a speaking engagement at a university, and I thought I was just in fuego. I mean, I thought I was on fire. But the reaction that I got just seemed mute. It was like, I mean, usually I can really knock them out of the seats. I bring my energy, I bring my enthusiasm, I bring all my real kind of connective tissue to the real world. I always believe in experiential learning and not just theoretical learning. and it didn't work. It didn't work. It just seemed like not that my stuff was complex, or I didn't mean it to go like it went over their head, but it just, and it not my stuff is very down to earth and simple and almost stupid if you really want to know the truth. But it was one of those events. It was one of those times where, you just didn't quite knock them dead like you used to, or like you usually do, Professor Nez.
Yeah.
And so it was a real blow. But what you're saying about concrete examples and what you're saying about trying to come up with, I think that's the only way to learn, because the only way that an audience is going to retain the information, the only way the audience is going to stay focused on the information, any audience, whether it's an education, a tutorial, you're selling something, you're trying to entertain somebody, it has to resonate with that audience, and they have to feel like they can't live without that information. How does it relate to their lives? Point. How does it relate to what they want to do, what they want to be, what they want to strive for, what they want to pursue, what they're trying to solve in their life? And I love what you're doing there. You're solving a problem with this idea of the hands, and it kind of shows you the graph of, and it's really, digital and very it sounds very like advanced. I don't know if you know this or not, Ryan, but I don't want to call myself a musician, but I've recorded and played music before.
Cool.
I've actually done a couple scores for a couple of low budget independent films, but I thought they were awesome. But nothing big, obviously, nothing worth bragging about. But and as a matter of fact, I might have the filmmaker on my show. I don't play piano.
That's a lot, though. If you got in a film score, that's pretty. Not many people can say they do that.
It was. Well, I mean, the only reason I didn't want to make it's not really a big deal is because it's not like anything. You can go search it on IMDb. I mean, but for the most part, it's something very, very just small. Anyway, but the point is, what I was trying to say is that, I never played piano. I always wanted to, and I loved my gig was really guitar, bass, and even sort of haphazard drums. But I love drums. Drums are fun, but guitar was my main instrument. And one time I got really ill, and I had to have surgery. And there was a lot of time to myself, a little time to recuperate. And I took a book, because what you're talking about with your learning and your curriculum, I took a book to a local college, a local community college, and they had piano rooms, right? They have a music center at a local community college. And if you could rent out, a piano room, for free. Or maybe I think I had to have a connection or something, or being a professor somehow. I can't remember how, but I rented a free piano room, and I just took this book I got from the library, Learning Piano, because it had always been my dream, and I had so much time on my hands. I was young at the time, and I just went, and it had kind of what you were talking about, but not the same thing. I mean, it showed you sort of like a chord book for guitar. It kind of showed you where C was, where A sharp minor was, and where D flat, and things like that. And I tried to. And I actually thought I actually learned one song by the end of the session, where I think
fantastic.
Having that, it was a simple song, just a simple 12 bar blues kind of thing, kind of ragtime 12 bar blues kind of song. But I recorded it. I brought a recorder, and I remember playing it for my friends, and they're like, "Shit, that's not bad." And I was like, "Yeah, it's kind of rough, it's kind of clunky, but it was." The point was. And my real kind of sort of reason for bringing this up is, when you can make somebody feel like they can do something, I don't know about you, Ryan, I feel like this is going to resonate with you. It's probably the greatest service you can give to anybody. You make somebody feel that simple book that I got from the library for free. I didn't have to pay for it. And this curriculum sounds like it's 10 times better than this. I mean, 10 times more interactive, at least technologically. When you can make somebody feel like they can do something, I think that's the number one fuel. I think that's the number one force, if you want to call it, in the universe that pushes people and perpetuates people to go after things and to keep striving. And what you're doing with your curriculum sounds very similar to that. And I'm really happy you're on the show. It really means a lot to me, because I really love to have a fellow musician, a fellow creator, somebody who comes from that perspective, but who's also not dismissive of technology, because you hear all these people who, for lack of a better word, they they just don't see technology as something that they need to maybe include in their repertoire or anything. And some of them actually have a kind of a haughty attitude about it. They kind of have this sort of like too cool for school attitude about technology, or like, no, that's not real art, or that's not real creativity, you know, and it always kind of bugs me. But you're taking the different route. You're embracing technology, you're utilizing technology, and you're incorporating it with what you do creatively. And I just want to say kudos to you for that. Can I ask you something, Ryan? And by the way, anybody watching, if you have any questions for our guest or questions for me, please feel free. I'm monitoring the comments here. Please feel free to chime in if you're still there. I wanted to ask you, Ryan, who are some of the people that you grew up listening to that were inspirations to you? I mean, I mentioned Chopin. Who were some of the people that how did it all start for you with music? I mean, you said you played music since you were 8?
Yes, since I was 8, and the story is kind of unique because my family was part of a religious denomination who invited a missionary to come over, and he could play by ear, and he would sit down at the organ that we had, and he would play any song he wanted, and he played the E.T. theme song just by ear. And I thought that was just really remarkably impressive.
Yeah.
Somebody could do that. And what I love too is that he wasn't reliant on the notes on a page. And so I was inspired by him first and foremost. And ironically, I never really developed an ear. You might find this odd, but I never really became a musician that heard a song and tried to mimic that song. I more focused on, okay, you know, how can I create new sounds type of deal. But I do play by ear a little bit, so I don't want to completely dismiss that, because I do, but not like a lot of people that I admire who made that their main emphasis. So his name is Ted Harris, and Ted had given me a songbook or found a songbook that used a number system above the words. And there was this song in there called Michael Row Your Boat Ashore, old traditional.
Michael Row Your Boat Ashore. Why does that sound familiar?
It's that, I mean.
Is it a traditional song, like a folk song?
Yeah, so like a folk song.
Okay.
So, but that's what I learned first, pretty much, from the number system. But growing up, I was inspired by a lot of religious figures, such as Amy Grant, Michael W. Smith, who were in the pop scene at the time. So I'm 36 now. I was born in 1980, and so, but also
you look terrific. You don't look a day over 28.
I do appreciate that.
You look very young. I actually thought you were a lot younger than that, to be honest.
Well, I was a national competitive gymnast.
How old do I look? Here's the big test, right? Well, how old does Professor Nez look?
So I'm not.
You better watch your tongue.
I'm not saying anything, because no matter what I say, it's going to be wrong.
I actually just turned 40. No, you're fine. I'm totally teasing. I actually just turned 40 in December, so I'm the big 4-0. Kelly says 35.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Kelly, for joining us.
Yeah, definitely not 40. That's so.
I still have all my hair. I mean, that's kind of cool that I still have all my hair.
You could always
at least that you can see it's kind of receding there, but it's there at least.
Pretend you're a little bit older.
This is actually a toupee, so I just basically picked this up. This is roadkill. I just glued it to my head. No, I'm kidding. But
I just think that one should adopt the motto that I'm getting younger. And I think that
yes. You're a songwriter too. Who are some of your? Did you tell me besides some of these more traditional figures or more non-secular?
I was inspired by some religious people, but I was actually inspired by a lot of non-religious people. I just wouldn't have recognized it at the time. Where you hear songs on the radio or you're in different environments. I remember being in middle school and high school and hearing groups such as kind of alternative rock or metal bands like Pantera and and a lot of alternative groups that probably
Judas Priest,
Linkin Park. You've heard of them?
Okay, Linkin Park. Okay,
and some random bands. Let me think of some few.
But your
that
piano
I know.
music, your sort of piano music, which is so melodic and almost,
Well,
it's
I
almost got
actually
this sort of.
have a unique twist with the piano music, and I'll tell you what I mean. I did learn a little bit of guitar when I was 14, and that's when I also was starting to write a lot of songs, and that's when I was getting serious. And my parents got me into formal piano lessons at that point too. And what I did is I took a lot of the chord patterns that I was learning on guitar and applying them to piano, and then kind of bouncing back and forth between the instruments to extract things. And so a lot of the chord patterns that I do that sound very melodic, and then I fill up with my unique stuff that nobody can predict. That's from alternative rock band chord progressions. So when you're
So you
hearing,
kind of you take from many different genres. You're not just classical. Or
Sure.
You're not just one specific genre. Yeah.
Yeah,
I always felt the same way. I always felt like music was
branched out a little
music.
bit too.
Yeah, I always, sorry about that. I didn't mean to.
No problem.
I always felt like music was music, and if it was good, it was good. Whether it's pop music, whether it's flamenco or bossa nova or hip hop or metal. I never really.
Yeah.
I even love.
Well, I try not to limit
love.
myself to a genre. I don't
Yeah.
feel that. I feel that, and also I'm assembling a band as well, because I have a lot of lyrical songs. And
Oh, cool.
Those.
How many songs have you written, by the way?
Point, at least 30 lyrical songs.
Oh, cool.
Mm-hmm. But
are you planning on? Do you have some kind of vision for yourself to maybe put these all out there? I mean, what do you think of?
Yeah, I do.
What do you think of Chance the Rapper? I mean, doing all this independently. If he's not a personification of the era that we're living in, getting a Grammy without ever being signed by a major label, what do you? Are you planning on compiling a record and making a record and putting it out and distributing it?
Not necessarily, and I'll tell you why. I'm developing a strategy that I'm trying to extract from entrepreneurs that I consider role models, in the sense that they're just people that I want to copy in some regard. And
who? Like who?
Well, I'll give an example. Frank Kern.
Frank Kern.
Yeah, he's a digital marketer, and a lot of people have been copying his stuff and imitating his. But that's okay. He intends that for it to happen. That's what he does. He puts out a lot of free info, and he wants people to use his stuff. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing that people have copied a lot of his methods, because I'm very sure that he's copied a lot of other people's methods. But
yeah,
his approach is very unique and down to earth. And what I believe in is I am trying to put forth a brand new pioneering effort to match the value of digital audio art with visual art. And what I have talked to a friend of mine about recently, who is a jazz pianist and classical pianist, he was talking to me. He's like, why isn't music valued? He's just like, why can't a painter sell their painting for thousands of dollars? And how come I can't sell my music? I can only sell it on iTunes for 99 cents. And I told him, I said, well, I'll tell you exactly why. Because
that is interesting.
A painter's piece of art is a limited edition creation that the painter is never going to own again. And nobody else except the buyer is going to own that artwork. And so right now I'm developing a plan to put forth music that I will never, ever play again, I will never keep again, and only somebody else will own, which means that I could sell that for thousands of dollars, just that one song. And the way that I
so it's like the sense of, it's the sense of limitedness. It's the sense of urgency and sense of, immediacy, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the sense of, I'm sorry, what the word I was searching for was sense of scarcity. It's the scarcity of the object that gives it its value. It's not necessarily that the piece of art is more valuable, but it's scarcity
And
almost
it's
breeds
the
the value.
perception that it's the only one available.
Right. Good point. That's a really interesting point. That's almost a really cool, a really cool way of looking at storytelling and marketing is, if you're thinking about, creating presence with your story, which is what my whole kind of gig is about. What I try to do and help people do is, brand their story and tell their story well, discover who they truly are as a company, as a brand, as an individual. You see how I got that out so quickly? It's been my spiel. That was terrible. I just went into my tagline without even flinching. Isn't that terrible? Shameless, Professor Nez.
That's okay.
But anyway, I mean, on a serious note, I mean, that's interesting, that level, that discussing, the amount of scarcity or how you present this sense of this is a limited edition, what have you, is a really interesting tool that I don't think a lot of musicians even understand.
Well, musicians are breaking their back living slaves, and it's needless.
Yeah.
And it'd be like a painter going on a street corner and trying to paint the same exact painting 100 times to get 100 sales, and selling each for $1. Now that's just bullcrap.
Right.
You can't.
That's just bullcrap. I like the way you said that.
That's devaluing yourself as a person, for one, putting all that time and effort into something and do 100 of them. And with digital music, it's easy to duplicate because basically you don't have to do any effort. So that's taken out of the equation. But in order for digital promotion to make any sense at all, or even be justified, is if you have a fan base of 100,000 people. If you don't have a fan base of 100,000 people, there's no way to justify selling a song for 99 cents. So, and I don't know if you have time or want to talk about this, but I've put a lot of thought into the whole music industry with record labels and music distribution and so forth. But I think that if I did go into that, it could be applied to pretty much any industry. So if you're game for it, I'll be happy to...
I actually, was going to ask you, how are you, before you get into that, let me ask you really quickly, is this your full-time gig, or do you have a day job or something that you do for
I do. I coach gymnastics about 4 times a week.
Oh, cool. Wow. A musician. You coach gymnastics, like acrobatic gymnastics?
Yeah, all ages.
Like the stuff we see at the Olympics, that stuff?
Yeah. I
wow.
coach all levels.
I don't know if there was different types of gym. I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
My background, I started coaching when I was pretty young, about 16 years old, and I competed nationally, so I naturally fell into...
Oh, you're kidding me. I didn't even know that. Wow.
Yeah, so that could be... A lot of gymnasts, they tend to look young for a long time, so I think that
so
could
you've
be
been a natural... Yeah. You do look very young. So you've been like an educator for a while. You actually teach. Do you teach at a high school, at a college?
No, it's at private club. So
oh, cool! Very private club. That's awesome. Yeah. And so you do that. That's your day gig. You do that full time, and your side hustle is sort of.
I've used some of the funds from this to help me develop my music curriculum and to just pay for random things in order to get that at least to a starting point. So.
Oh, very cool.
And what's great is that eventually I'll have music as my main thing with all of my entrepreneurship going on. And one thing about me, which I'm sure a lot of your listening audience might be similar, is I'm a lightning storm brain thinker where I can easily have 10 ideas going at the same time and feel great about it.
Oh, wow.
What I've done over the past...
Is that like another way of looking at like multitasking? Like that's another way of calling it multitasking?
In a way.
Okay.
I'm sure there's some people that have some very negative things to call it, but I'm not going to even focus on that. But over the last 3 years, I've had an opportunity to develop more of a disciplined way of thinking to where I've consolidated a lot of those ideas together into other ideas so that I'm not competing against myself.
Wow.
So basically
kind of like a savant. I mean, I don't know how you can do that. If I focus on too many things, I lose it.
Main competition, and I'm my biggest enemy. So
yeah,
I've got to defeat myself as much as I can in order to go forth with. But also, I think that sometimes it's worth spending a lot of time on things too. Like Damon John, the Shark Tank entrepreneur, it took him 9 years to become a billionaire. And he went through a long period of time where he was making zero money, but he was tilling the soil. And I think a lot of people get discouraged in entrepreneurship if something doesn't happen in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. And I think that
if they even make it there that long,
if they make it,
most people quit after a year or two, and it usually takes. Yeah, patience is key. I mean, there's a lot of people echoing that on social media who are successful. I think any great leader would tell you, any great successful business person, man or woman, would say that patience is key and putting in the sweat and the work. Somebody shared something very recently. It was by a French. Did you happen to see this, Ryan? Excuse me. It was on social media. Kind of a viral video. I can't remember if it was a French author or painter. Oh, it was a French singer, actually. And he was saying that he doesn't believe, it was really cool. I mean, he was saying some real kind of in-your-face controversial stuff. He was saying, I don't believe in, I don't believe there is such a thing as an artist. I don't believe there is such a thing as a creator. I don't think there is something as originality. The people who make it in the creative world, in the artistic world, are the people who sweat, the people who work so hard and bust their butt and are patient and don't give up. Those are the people who are successful, period. He said, he also said he doesn't believe in talent. He said, I don't believe in talent. So his main thing, I mean, you know who Gary Vee is. Gary Vee talks a lot about that too. So this French singer, and I would never be able to recall his name. He basically said that there's no such thing as talent. There's no such thing as artists. There's no such thing as creators. There's only sweat. It's only work. And those are the people who are successful, the people who show up, who do it, who do all the hard work and don't give up, right? It's persistence, isn't it?
Well, persistence is a big part of it. And that's been a huge lesson that I've had to adapt. But actually, I have read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And that's one of the things that is ascribed to the wealthy people. But I actually
had a student recommend that book to me, and I'm starting to read it now because he said
it's got some great concepts. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, he said like everything, because I do my thing in front of my class and my students, and he came up to me and said, "God, all your motivational, inspirational stuff. Like, have you read Napoleon Hill's book?" And I was like, "No, I haven't." And he's like, "Oh, you got to read it because it's exactly right up your alley." And he was dead right. And you've read it too as well, obviously.
Well, when I read it, I was actually kind of offended, and I'll tell you why I was offended.
Oh, cool. Controversy. I love it.
Because of the format, the way that it's all presented. And there's two, and this actually has a tie to what inspired me to start my music curriculum, believe it or not. I had wanted to really discover how Napoleon Hill came up with what he did, and the facts of it is that he calls the 13 Secrets of Wealth Andrew Carnegie's 13 Secrets of Wealth. So in other words, Napoleon Hill was a student of Andrew Carnegie, and Andrew Carnegie had asked Napoleon Hill to scientifically evaluate about 500 different wealthy people and find out what was similar between them all, so that he could document for people that are poor or wealthy how to establish and maintain wealth. And then that inspired me to do some research on Andrew Carnegie, which is fascinating because Andrew Carnegie actually addressed every political issue that we have today when it comes to the economy and nonprofit organizations, the distribution of wealth, the studious distribution of wealth so it doesn't go into a black hole. And what I was offended about in Napoleon Hill's book is just the way that Napoleon Hill presents the information. That's the only real offense. Because when you read the book, he talks a lot about the subconscious in the universe, and I believe in both personally, but it's almost kind of like cotton candy in the sky, the way that it's presented. And I just wanted to come up with my own system to try to help bring it down to earth a lot better so that I personally could assimilate it. And that way I couldn't reject, Andrew Carnegie's good information because maybe Napoleon Hill just maybe didn't communicate it in a way that might be easy to assimilate, perhaps. So I've been working on adapting his stuff so that I can make it work for me, but I know some people don't care how a book's presented. They just want the information. So I'm just different, it's nothing bad, it's nothing good. It's just me.
Yeah.
So
so what let me ask you this, because I think this is really interesting here. And isn't it cool that we've actually gotten to the 41 minute mark, and it feels like we've only been talking for 5 minutes, doesn't it, Ryan? Are you having fun here on the NEZNATION live show?
Sure am.
Okay, cool. We're so happy to have you.
We're
Again,
if you're watching right now.
Yeah, you're in Oregon, right?
Sure. Yeah, about 30 minutes south of Portland.
Oh, very cool. By the way, again, if you guys are watching right now, please leave comments so we can, if you have any questions for myself, Professor Nez, or our guest today, Ryan Dwyer, the great musician here who's with us, entrepreneurial musician, if you will. And this is what I wanted to ask you next, Ryan. I wanted to ask you, are you satisfied where you are right now? Like, is this something that you want to push into, you kind of hear this phrase all the time. Do you want to make your side hustle your full-time hustle, or are you content and satisfied being a gymnastics coach, gymnastics teacher, and just doing this for fun? Or what is your kind of purpose or vision? And you said you wanted to kind of talk about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm definitely not satisfied. I think contentment can sometimes be the enemy of progress. And with my coaching job, I've actually kind of flipped the script a little bit, where I'm helping the facility with their marketing a little bit. I'm helping them better administrate some of the way that they go about things. And I'm also launching an experimental marketing plan to have my music curriculum taught there. So I don't see it as a black white thing where it's simply, drop the gymnastics or whatever. I see it as a collaborative opportunity where their entrepreneurship and my entrepreneurship can come together to do some amazing things. And so what's interesting about Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich is that it talks about seizing opportunities where you're at. So if you're an employee of a company, you can literally operate as an entrepreneur employee, as what I call it. I kind of coined that phrase. Being an entrepreneur employee means bringing your original ideas to the equation so that your value is so great that you can start commanding your price point for compensation. So it's just a matter of you lay out exactly how you're helping them, and then you decide on how they will compensate you for that. And when the proof starts coming in, then they pay you. It's kind of that simple. But a lot of people that are entrepreneurs who don't have starting capital might be in a similar situation as me, where the job that they're working at, they could bring something extremely valuable to the table, to that corporation, and get a huge risk. Then they can take that funding that they've got right then and apply it towards their venture.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to say something that is controversial, which is minimum wage. But I have to say this. I do believe there should be a minimum wage. However, I think what's better to do is to educate people in high school how to increase their value to employers so that the employer won't bat an eye to give them $16 an hour or
absolutely
$20 an hour.
I tell my students all the time, I go, and I've talked about this in several other videos that I've published and content that I've published, that, and I just wanted to compliment what you're saying. I'm not trying to direct it towards me by any means, but I was trying to tell my students, I go, don't always go into the interview or in any situation where there's an opportunity thinking what you can get out of, the organization, the company, but what you can give, how you can serve them better. You got to make yourself, I hate the term sell yourself, but you got to make yourself attractive to employers. You got to make yourself an asset, and you got to communicate that vision. You got to communicate those asset qualities so that they can understand that clearly. I mean, there's nothing more important than that. I mean, I couldn't agree more with you, Ryan.
Yeah, that's
well
right
said.
on. And what's remarkable about this is that, a lot of people, they complain about what they're getting paid.
Yeah.
But if they just do a small mind tweak,
yes,
it's just a really small and quick mind tweak where, like you said, you're flipping the script. It's not what they can get out of the company, it's what they can put into the company.
Right. It's actually a humble attitude too.
It sure is.
Yeah. I mean, I love the way I love the way that you've presented that, and I love where you're going with that. And the interesting thing is for me is that I love that your understanding of the concept of creating, it's almost do it yourself, creating the value yourself, creating the vision, creating the goal, creating the plan yourself, rather than depending on a major label or depending on a production company or depending on an third-party entity. I just love that. You said you wanted to talk. I think this might be a good time to kind of wrap things up, and maybe you wanted to talk a little bit about the industry. And I'm curious what your thoughts were, and if this relates at all to what I said about Chance the Rapper. So by all means, tell us what you.
Well, yeah, kudos to him for just not prostituting himself to a record label, for one.
Yeah.
Because record labels, on average, only give 10% of the total amount of revenue to the artist. And what that means is somebody like Katy Perry, who I think is hooked up with a record label officially, I am going to bet she probably makes under 20% of the total funds. Now, she might not care because it might be so much money coming in that she just doesn't care. But that's the reality of the situation that an artist walks into. And in most cases, the artists are told exactly what to do as far as exactly when to wake up in the morning and when to go to bed and when to brush their teeth. So that type of scenario, one has to prepare their mind for, because it's like being owned by a pimp. There's really no difference between being owned by a pimp and the pimp collecting most of the money and maybe giving some to the prostitute, but maybe taking care of some of their expenses and giving them a little bit of spending cash here and there. But with record labels, they don't even do that. They don't even treat you as good as being a prostitute, because record labels give them a loan first in the form of an advance.
Right.
So basically, we don't have much time as far as talking about stuff like that, but I think that many places like Patreon, who are set up for creators and artists to do their own thing, and people can pay them directly through the platform. I don't know if you've heard of that company, but
no,
it's a good example, since we're talking about creators, of a company that is set up to put the artist first, where the artist is getting most of the profit.
Right.
So but with entrepreneurship, I think every entrepreneur's got to come up with their own equation that works for them. And no matter what you do, as far as reading from other people or somebody you admire that you're trying to copy, you're still going to have to do independent experimentation to see if it actually does work for you. Yeah. And if something somebody else is working for you, well, cool. That's awesome. But I'm a pretty stubborn person, and I'll admit it. I'm very stubborn. I would rather wait years for something that I've come up with to work out instead of trying to completely copy somebody else. But it's just how it is.
Well, you know what? I think that's a testament to who you are as an individual, your integrity, and your approach to life, I think, speaks a lot about who you are internally, and it really comes through. Your sincerity comes through, Ryan. I want to thank you on behalf of Nez Nation and behalf of myself and others who are watching. I want to just thank you for such a powerful, value-packed interview. You gave us a lot of great information, especially from not only the creative side, and what you're doing with your music and your music curriculum and your side hustle, but you're also talking a lot about the entrepreneurial side and how people should lever that in different ways. And I just want to say, I thought this was just a fantastic, fantastic interview. I wanted to ask you one last question, because it's something that I've been asking all my guests. I've been trying to keep it sort of consistent. What is the one thing, Ryan, before we say goodbye to you, what is the one thing in your entire existence, your entire 36 years on this planet? And it's probably hard to, I don't want to say it's the only thing, but is there one thing that you learned, one thing that you experienced, one thing that you picked up? Maybe it was something your grandmother told you when you were a kid, or maybe it was something you picked up along the way in your life that has stuck with you and has helped you to become who you are today, and to inspire you and help you get better at your craft and be just a better human being. What is that one thing that you'd like to share with the Nez Nation audience?
Well, that's a great question. I can put it to two things.
Okay.
One is the
It's supposed to be one. You're ruining the question, Ryan. No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Well, think of it as a magnet. A magnet.
No, I'm totally kidding. Magnet. Okay, you're so smart. See, you're too clever for me. You're too clever for me, Ryan. Okay, go ahead.
I'm giving you the positive and negative end of the attraction.
I love it. I love it. Keep going.
So basically, it's been the strength of my vision combined with allowing people that are positive to come along and course correct along that path. And a good example is when I was 7, I wanted to make the 2000 Olympics. And my focus was so succinct that people came along to support that. And it was the encouragement from grandparents and coaches that really helped out. So what I mean by the two poles of the magnet is you've also got to be open to the encouragement of other people and allow their positive words to impact you and to guide you through the rough times where you do have to be persistent, because with persistence, there's a lot of hell to go through.
Oh, yeah.
And so I would say try your best to remember all of the great things people have said to you. And
focus on the positive, discard the rest.
Focus on that and discard the rest. I love that. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I love that, Ryan. I can't think of a better note to end on. Again, I just want to say, Nez Nation, thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Ryan, for being a guest on Nez Nation Live. If you're wondering how you can ever get notified when we're going live, or what are some best ways to find out when our scheduled programming is, don't forget to hit that like button up there on the Professor Nez business page. Make sure you hit the follow and the notification icon so you can always get notified when we go live. I had an amazing time with our guest today. Again, thank you. Thank you so much, Ryan, for being here.
Thank you for inspiring.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. And Ryan actually is going to, before I sign off, Ryan actually is going to go back to this stream after we're done here, or hopefully sooner than later. He's going to leave in the comments ways in which that you can connect with him, and where people can get a hold of Ryan and find his content and discover his the things that he's doing right now. So Ryan's going to go ahead and do that and leave that in the comments when he gets a chance. And again, Nez Nation, thank you so much for watching. This is your host, Professor Nez. We are signing off, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you again.
All right. See you, everybody.
Bye-bye.